Millionaire CEO walked away from his pregnant fiancée. 4 years later, he saw her with twins at the airport. The hum of announcements and the rolling thunder of luggage wheels echoed through the wide corridors of JFK International Airport. In the VIP terminal, everything felt polished, removed from the chaos of the outside world. Businessmen in suits checked their watches. Assistants trailed behind with folders, and private drivers waited near tinted windows. Evan Callahan stepped out of the VIP lounge, phone pressed to his ear, eyes focused but distant. His suit was perfectly tailored, his tie loosened just slightly at the collar. "Yes, I saw the documents," he said, his voice calm but clipped. "Tell Singapore we will sign after the briefing. No delays." He ended the call, slipping the phone into his coat pocket, and moved swiftly toward Gate 4B, where his team was waiting. His pace was purposeful until something made him stop mid-stride. A flash of gold in the crowd. His eyes locked on a woman about 20 ft ahead, crouched down, adjusting the backpack of a small child. Her long blonde hair shimmered beneath the airport lights, caught in a loose braid that looked both hurried and familiar. She stood up, and the breath caught in his throat. Aurora West. Time didn't just slow, it collapsed. She had not changed much, maybe a little thinner, a little more tired around the eyes. But it was her. The same woman whose laughter used to echo through his apartment. The same woman he had once imagined spending forever with. And she was not alone. 2 little girls stood beside her, no more than 3 or 4 years old. Matching sundresses, strawberry pink backpacks. One of them giggled at something her sister whispered. Their joy so natural, so radiant that it pulled at something deep in his chest. Then one of the girls turned and Evan's world stopped. She had his eyes. Not just the color, a rare shade of stormy gray, but the exact shape. The way they tilted slightly when she smiled. The resemblance was unmistakable, impossible. She looked at him curiously, as if sensing something, then turned back to her mother. Aurora looked up. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. Neither moved. Evan's lips parted, but no sound came out. He took a small step forward, hesitant, unthinking, while Aurora's hand instinctively moved, pulling the girls closer to her sides, one in each arm. And then she turned without a word, without a glance back. She walked away quickly, her stride tight, purposeful. The girls followed, unaware of the storm she had just reignited. Evan didn't move. Couldn't. The crowds shifted around him. People boarding flights, hugging relatives, shouting to attendants. But to him, everything blurred into background noise. His ears rang. His chest felt hollow, like all the air had vanished. She had children, twins, and one of them had his eyes. He struggled to breathe, like something was pressing down on his chest. Logic tried to argue. It could be coincidence. A trick of the light, a shadow from the past. But no, he knew. He felt it deep in his bones, in that old, half-buried part of his heart that had never stopped aching. Aurora. The name hit him like a wave. He hadn't said it aloud in years, not since she vanished from his life without explanation, without a word. But she hadn't vanished. She had just disappeared from his world. And now she was here with children who looked just like him. His team assistant appeared at his side, confused. "Sir, the boardroom is ready. They're waiting on your final approval for I need a minute," Evan said, his voice, eyes still fixed on the spot where Aurora had been. "Reschedule the meeting." "But sir, reschedule it." The assistant hesitated, then stepped back, phone in hand. Evan stood there alone, staring at the empty space ahead of him, his thoughts racing, heart pounding. What had happened? Why had she left? Why had she never told him? He closed his eyes, but all he could see was her face. Sharp, sudden, real, and the tiny, perfect face of the child with his eyes. And just like that, the past began to uncoil inside him. Memory by memory, like a tide rushing in. 4 years earlier, everything felt golden. Evan Callahan and Aurora West were the kind of couple people noticed. Not for their wealth or status, but for the way they looked at each other. He was the heir to Callahan International, born into boardrooms and billion-dollar mergers. She was a freelance illustrator with paint under her nails and sunlight in her laugh. They were different, but together they made perfect sense. Their Tribeca apartment was small, but full of life. Doodles on napkins, art supplies on the kitchen table, mismatched mugs, and mornings filled with soft music and burnt toast. Evan brought her tea every day. Aurora left silly sketches in his briefcase. They were happy. Then Evan took her to Montauk. At dusk, with waves brushing their ankles and wind tangling her hair, he dropped to one knee. "Bawin, Aurora West," he said, voice unsteady. "You're my peace. Will you marry me?" She said yes without hesitation. The ocean bore witness to their joy. But perfect things don't always last. 3 weeks later, his father died. Sudden brutal heart attack mid-meeting. Overnight, Evan became the CEO of a fragile empire. The media circled like sharks. The board wanted answers. Investors demanded stability. In the chaos, Aurora waited. She gave him space. She trusted they would weather it together. Then she found out she was pregnant. She placed the positive test tucked into a white envelope on his nightstand. She planned to tell him that night, but he didn't come home. Instead, he was locked in a boardroom. "This engagement is a liability," said his mother. "Cold as steel. You're under a microscope. The board wants stability." Evan's voice was tight. "Aurora has nothing to do with this company." "She will if this continues," their lawyer added. "She's unvetted. No prenup, no business ties. She's not strategic." "Meaning what?" Evan demanded. "Meaning," his mother said firmly. "Malene Graves is Malene, daughter of their largest investor. A marriage between the two families would guarantee control, lock in capital, and silence critics." "I love Aurora," Evan said. "Then you'll lose everything," his mother replied. "The board will vote you out. This is bigger than you." The pressure was relentless. Legal acted fast. His phone was changed. Her number was blocked. Her messages rerouted. A press photo of Evan and Malene at a charity gala was arranged. A formal engagement announcement followed. They told him it was for Aurora's protection. No scandal, no questions, a clean separation. He tried to reach her but was told she had left New York. He never saw the envelope. Aurora waited 3 days. No call, no text, nothing. Then she saw the news. Evan and Malene smiling hand in hand on every screen. She stood in her apartment, the ring heavy on her finger, one hand pressed to her stomach, and something inside her shattered. She packed a single suitcase, left the ring on the windowsill, bought a bus ticket west, no forwarding address, no goodbye. She told herself she was done crying, but she didn't know the full story. Evan had never stopped loving her. He hadn't chosen power over love. He had been cornered, misled, shut out of the truth. What neither of them knew was that someone close, someone with influence and motives, had buried every message, every attempt, every hope, all to keep them apart. And now, 4 years later, with fate setting its own plans into motion, all of it was about to come to light. Everything they lost and everything they still had a chance to reclaim. Nestled in a quiet corner of Oregon, far from Manhattan's towering skyline, sat a small flower shop named Bloom and Brush. It wasn't grand, no luxury blooms or designer arrangements, but it was warm and it was honest. Soft, classical music played in the background, and the scent of eucalyptus and lavender lingered like a memory. Behind the wooden counter, Aurora West tied a ribbon around a bouquet of pays. A customer smiled, thanked her, and stepped out. The brass bell above the door jingled as it closed. Moments later, 2 little voices rang out from the back room. "Mama!" Aurora turned just in time to see her daughters, Ava and Lily, burst into the shop. 4 years old, all light and motion and curiosity, identical in features, but complete opposites in spirit. Ava was calm, quietly observant. Lily, a storm of words and ideas and songs. Both had inherited Aurora's soft blonde curls and their father's deep-set eyes, though Aurora never said his name aloud. "Did you finish your paintings?" she asked. "Yes." Lily held up a page covered in swirls of pink and blue. "It's a unicorn garden." Aurora smiled and kissed her forehead. "I love it." Ava tugged at her sleeve. "Can you read to us now?" In the nook by the window, they curled up on a small bench. Aurora pulled a well-worn book from the shelf and read, her voice low and soothing. To anyone passing by, it looked idyllic. But behind Aurora's smile was a quiet ache. She had built this life on her own. Left New York, left everything behind to keep her daughter safe. No scandal, no headlines, no powerful family trying to erase her existence. She told herself she had let go of Evan the day he vanished, that she didn't need closure, that she had moved on. But on the nights when the house fell silent and the girls were asleep, Aurora would sit by the window staring out at the stars, and she would wonder, did he ever think of her? Did he ever know? Did he ever care? She never let herself cry aloud, only in silence behind closed doors, because the pain still lived there, because a part of her heart was still missing, and she wasn't sure it ever stopped loving him. Thousands of miles away, New York's skyline shimmered like glass under the night sky. In a high-rise office, Evan Callahan sat alone. The view stretched for miles, but his eyes were fixed on nothing. He was now CEO of Callahan Tech, one of the fastest-growing AI firms in the world. His face had graced magazine covers and industry panels, but there was no light in his smile, no mention of family, no traces of a personal life. His penthouse was pristine, expensive, and empty, like a showroom nobody lived in. He had once been engaged briefly to a venture capitalist's daughter. It had been arranged, convenient, meaningless. The engagement ended quietly. Neither of them seemed to care. Evan never dated after that. He worked, he built, he avoided. The past was a locked room, and he had thrown away the key. But sometimes, when the weight of silence was too loud, he would open the bottom drawer of his desk and pull out a small photo. It was faded now, the edges curling. Aurora on a beach, her hair whipped by wind, her smile wide and alive, one hand reaching for the camera. She had never looked more real, and he had never felt more lost. A year after she disappeared, he tried to find her. The guilt had grown too heavy to ignore. He hired a private investigator, but every lead went cold. What he didn't know, what he still didn't know, was that his mother had quietly buried the investigation. The emails, the calls, the updates, all blocked, all filtered, all erased. She had done it to protect the family's image, their legacy, and Evan had no idea. So he made peace with silence, or tried to. He told himself she had walked away, but he had never stopped wondering why. That same night in Oregon, Aurora closed the book. Ava and Lily were already asleep against her sides. She kissed their foreheads and whispered, "The end." In New York, Evan placed the photo back in the drawer and clicked it shut, the desk lamp casting long shadows across his face. Two lives, one truth, and fate already moving, preparing to collide the past with the present, bringing them face to face again. Very soon, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the airport parking garage. Aurora moved fast, arms wrapped protectively around her daughters as she ushered them toward the car. "Mommy, who was that man?" Ava asked softly, glancing back. "Just someone I used to know," Aurora murmured, trying to steady her breath, but her heart was racing. Then came the voice, low, breathless, right behind her. "Aura, wait." She froze. "Evan." He stepped forward, hand slightly raised as if not to startle her. His suit jacket hung open, his phone forgotten in his pocket, his face pale under the garage lights. "Are they mine?" His voice cracked. Raw and uncertain, Aurora turned, her jaw tight, eyes sharp. "Don't act like you don't know." Evan looked stunned. "What? You saw me with them and now you're playing innocent." Her voice wavered, but only just. "You left, Evan. You vanished. You married someone else within months, and now you ask that." "I didn't know," he said, barely a whisper. "Aurora, I swear I didn't know." She scoffed. "I carried your children, alone. I gave birth alone. Don't tell me you didn't know." "I didn't," he repeated, stepping closer. His eyes were shining. "I tried to find you, but you were gone. You mean your mother made me disappear?" He flinched. That was all the answer she needed. "I need to understand," he said quietly. "Please just talk to me." Aurora glanced at Ava and Lily. They stood silently, holding each other's hands, confusion in their eyes. She looked back at Evan, the man who once promised her forever, who had proposed on a beach at sunset. The man she both resented and painfully never stopped loving. "1 hour," she said. "There's a coffee shop near the gate." The coffee shop was quiet except for the clink of mugs and boarding announcements. Aurora sat with her arms crossed. Evan leaned forward, elbows on the table, his face tense. My father died right after I proposed, he said. A stroke, no warning. Aurora blinked. I was pulled into the company immediately. The board was panicking. Shares were falling. My mother, she told me, investors would pull out if my image didn't change, so cleaning up meant leaving me. She asked coldly. I didn't want to, Evan said, but the pressure, my mom, the lawyers, they said being with you looked bad. No prenup, no status. They called it a liability. His voice tightened. They offered me a way out. Alina Chen, her father invested, but only if I agreed. Aurora stared at him and you said yes. I tried not to. I told you I needed time. Then you were gone. I was gone. Aurora's voice rose. I texted, I called. You never answered. I thought you died, or just didn't care. Evan's voice cracked. I never got your messages. My phone was replaced. My accounts locked down. They said it was for security. I was furious. I thought you'd left me. Aurora's eyes dropped to her coffee. I was pregnant, she whispered. Evan's breath caught. I found out 2 weeks after you disappeared. I had no job, no money. I worked until my legs gave out. Gave birth alone in a rundown ER. I raised 2 girls while wondering why the man who loved me could leave so easily. Evan's eyes shimmered. He didn't speak. I hated you, she said softly. At least I thought I did. And now she didn't answer. But something had changed. The fire between them had cooled, replaced by something quieter. Not peace, not yet, but understanding. They had both been pulled apart by forces they couldn't control. Both had believed the other had walked away. Both had suffered. And now, sitting across from each other, hearts cracked open, they finally saw the truth. Neither of them had stopped loving. They had just never been given the chance to stay. The sun had dipped behind the Portland hills, casting a golden haze over the quiet street where Aurora's flower shop sat tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. Inside, the scent of peas and eucalyptus hung in the warm lamplight. Behind the counter, Aurora tied a ribbon around a bouquet, but her eyes kept drifting to the front window. He was there. Evan, leaning against a lamppost, coat folded over one arm, pretending to scroll through his phone. He'd been doing this for days. Sometimes early before meetings, sometimes late before closing. He never asked to come in unless invited. Never pushed, just waited. Aurora's fingers trembled slightly as she trimmed a lily. She still didn't know what to do. He had said he wanted to be part of Ava and Lily's lives, not to claim them, not to disrupt, but because now that he knew, he couldn't look away. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he had said days ago in a dim parking lot. Just a chance to earn trust, especially from them. She hadn't believed him. How could she? He had disappeared overnight. No answers, no goodbye. Part of her still loved him, and another part wanted to shield the girls from the one man who might break them. Then he did something she didn't expect. He didn't tell the girls who he was. Instead, one afternoon, he brought a brown box tied with string. The girls opened it on the shop floor. Inside was a set of illustrated books, soft watercolor tales of animals and robots learning to code to solve problems. At the end of each was a note for the curious minds who ask big questions. He had written them himself. He introduced himself only as Evan. No other label. Ava, always cautious, asked rapid-fire questions. Are you a real programmer? Did you build a robot? What's your favorite number? Lily, quieter, simply climbed into his lap and pointed at a cat on a laptop. Evan smiled. That's Bite. He was my kitten. They laughed. Aurora stood in the doorway and felt something shift, an ache of what might have been. In the days that followed, Evan kept returning. Sometimes with new books, sometimes pastries from next door, sometimes just to let Lily braid his hair while Ava grilled him about circuits. He never brought up the past, never pressed Aurora for more than a glance. She told herself this was for the girls, but she watched the way they lit up when they saw him through the window, the way Ava reached for his hand when crossing the street. And then, one night after closing, Aurora looked out the window and saw his car still parked across the street. Engine off, lights out, just sitting there. She stepped outside. You're still here, she said. I like knowing they're safe, he replied. That okay, she crossed her arms. This won't be easy. They've never had a father. If you disappear again, "I won't. You don't get to promise that," she said. "Not after last time." Evan didn't argue. He only nodded. "Then don't believe my words. Watch what I do." She looked at him carefully. He wasn't the same man from 4 years ago. The polished CEO in tailored suits. This Evan looked older, worn, but steadier. And then, from the open apartment window above, Lily's voice floated into the night. "Good night, Evan." They both looked up. Aurora turned to him and she saw it. The way his entire face changed at the sound, lit from the inside out. He didn't wave, didn't call back. He just smiled and stayed. The first sign something was wrong came with the camera flash. Aurora stepped outside the flower shop early one morning holding a box of fresh lilies when the blinding light hit her face. She flinched, nearly dropping the box. Then came the voices, fast, aggressive, relentless. "Miss West, is it true the twin girls are the children of Evan Hart? Were you his secret lover while he was engaged to the Walton heiress? Do the girls know who their father is? Are you planning to sue for inheritance?" Aurora backed away instinctively, her breath caught in her throat. Inside, Ava and Lily were at the shop's play corner, completely unaware, but her heart pounded with fear. Not for herself, but for them. A black SUV screeched to a halt outside the shop. Evan stepped out, his face pale with fury. "Enough," he said, his voice low but commanding. The reporters didn't budge. "This is private property. There are children inside." He stood between Aurora and the cameras, shielding her with his body. "Is it true, Mr. Hart?" someone shouted. "Are you the father of these children?" Evan looked straight into the flashing lenses. "Yes," he said clearly. "They are my daughters, and if you have any respect for childhood, for innocence, you will leave them alone." Aurora's lips parted in shock. He had just confirmed everything on record with the whole world watching. By noon, the video had gone viral. Tech CEO Evan Hart admits to having twin daughters with former fiancée. Private love, public fallout. Evan Hart speaks out to protect his children. Calls poured in from business partners. His board demanded answers. A major contract with an overseas investor hung by a thread, and Evan let it go. He walked into the conference room, looked the investor in the eye, and said calmly, "If signing this deal means I have to deny my daughters exist, then the answer is no." The room fell silent. "Well, find another partner," Evan said, standing. "But I only have one chance to be a real father." He left the building that afternoon with the weight of lost millions on his shoulders and not a single regret. Later that evening, as Aurora locked up the shop, he returned, not in a suit, not with explanations, but quietly, humbly. "Can I talk to them?" he asked. Aurora nodded. Inside, the twins were curled up on the couch with their favorite books. When Evan walked in, they smiled and jumped up to greet him, completely unaware of the storm that had passed over their heads that day. He knelt down in front of them, looking each girl in the eye. "I have something very important to say," he said softly. Ava tilted her head. "Did we do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong." "I did." He took a shaky breath. "A long time ago, I left, and I didn't even know you existed. But now I do, and I want to be here. Not just sometimes, all the time." The girls looked at each other, unsure. "I can't go back in time," Evan continued, his voice cracking. "But I can promise this. I will never disappear again. Never. Even if I'm tired or busy or far away, I'll always come back." He held out both hands, palms open. "If you'll let me." Ava was the first to step forward, slipping her small hand into his. Then Lily followed. Evan's eyes welled up as he gently wrapped his arms around them both, pulling them close. Behind them, Aurora covered her mouth, unable to stop the tears. She had dreamed of this moment once, 4 years ago, in a hospital bed, alone with 2 tiny lives and a broken heart. She never thought it would come. But here he was. Not Evan, the CEO. Not Evan, the man who left. Just Evan, their father. And for the first time, she let herself hope again. The rain had started as a whisper on the rooftops. Gentle, almost uncertain, before growing into a steady downpour that turned the sidewalks into mirrors and made the city feel quieter, softer. Evan stood in his office, staring blankly at the storm through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He hadn't touched his coffee. He hadn't looked at his phone. Despite the dozen missed calls and messages from investors, lawyers, and board members, none of it mattered right now. What mattered had walked out of his life at the airport 4 days ago. Then again yesterday when Aurora left the flower shop early, her eyes unreadable and her voice quiet as she said, "I just need time." He hadn't called her since. He couldn't. This time, the choice was hers. All he could do was wait. A soft knock at the door broke the silence. He turned. Aurora stood there, damp from the rain, her hair clinging to her face, her cheeks flushed. Her coat was soaked at the shoulders and her umbrella hung useless in one hand. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Evan's voice came out low, raw. "Did you come to say goodbye?" Aurora stepped inside, letting the door close behind her with a quiet click. She didn't answer at first, just walked toward him slowly, her gaze locked on his. "I've had a long time to hold on to my version of the story," she said softly. 4 years of believing you left, that you stopped loving me, that I wasn't enough." Evan opened his mouth, but she raised a hand gently. "I was wrong." She took another step. "You didn't leave me. You were forced to choose between what you loved and what the world expected of you, and no one ever told you you had daughters." He looked at her, eyes brimming. "Aurora, if you still love me," she whispered, "then you should know. I never stopped." The words hit him like thunder. And then she was in his arms, the space between them vanishing as the world outside blurred in streaks of rain. They held each other tightly, clinging as if afraid the moment might dissolve. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair, "for all of it." "I know," she replied, her voice muffled against his chest. "Me too." Neither noticed the glass doors opening again behind them, nor the tiny feet splashing in puddles across the polished floor. "Mommy!" Ava cried. "Daddy!" Lily added. Evan and Aurora turned just in time to catch their daughters barreling toward them, soaking wet and beaming. Aurora crouched down, catching Ava in her arms while Evan scooped up Lily. "Did you follow us?" Evan asked, laughing through tears. Ava nodded proudly. "We knew you were sad. And it's raining," Lily said. "So, we came to make it better." The 4 of them stood there, wet, laughing, crying, a tangle of arms and raindrops and long-awaited love. A family together for the first time. Later that night, the storm still tapping lightly against the windows. Evan sat cross-legged on the living room floor with the twins curled up on either side of him. A children's book lay open in his lap, his voice gentle and warm as he read aloud, adding silly voices that made the girls giggle. Aurora stood in the doorway watching them. The firelight glowed against Evan's face, and something in his eyes, peace, joy, maybe even healing, made her breath catch in her chest. He looked up and saw her, his voice trailing off for a moment. She smiled, and in that simple look, through glass and golden light, past 1,000 words they no longer needed to say. Forgiveness didn't come from one apology. It came from showing up, staying, choosing love again and again, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Aurora stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She was home. The salty breeze drifted gently through the air as waves whispered onto the sunlit shore. On a quiet stretch of beach beneath a white arch adorned with wild flowers and soft linen, Evan and Aurora stood hand in hand, eyes locked, hearts full. Aurora's dress, light and flowing, moved like sea foam in the breeze. Lace traced the edges of her sleeves, and her golden hair, loosely curled and half-pinned with daisies, glowed in the sunlight. Evan couldn't look away. "You're glowing," he whispered. She smiled. "That's because I'm marrying you." Behind them stood Ava and Lily in matching white dresses, clutching tiny bouquets of lavender and baby's breath. Their eyes sparkled with excitement. "You two look like little angels," Aurora said softly. "We are angels," Ava grinned. Daddy said. "So," Lily added proudly. A soft laugh rose from the small group of guests, close friends, chosen family, no cameras, no crowd, just them, the sea, and the moment. When it was time, Evan turned fully to Aurora, his hands cradling hers. "You and the girls, you're the reason I get to start again," he said, voice steady but thick with emotion. "You're the reason I came home. I vow never to let fear or duty steal what matters again. I vow to choose you every day, always. You and the two bright lights who call me Dad." Aurora's eyes shimmered with tears. She took a deep breath. Love doesn't vanish. It waits quietly, patiently for us to find our way back. "Evan, you were always the right person. I choose you, not just for what we lost, but for everything ahead." As they kissed, the ocean responded with a crash of waves, like nature itself was rejoicing. The twins squealed and tossed petals into the wind. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, the family gathered around a small fire pit near their beach cottage. Sand between their toes, laughter in the air. Evan crouched near the fire, roasting marshmallows with intense concentration while the girls tried and failed not to burn theirs. Aurora sat on a driftwood log wrapped in a blanket, her sketchbook open beside her. Ava tugged her sleeve. "We finished it, Mommy." She and Lily held up a crayon drawing. 4 stick figures hand in hand under a starry sky. A fire, the beach, waves, and above them in bright colors. "Our family forever." Aurora blinked hard. "You made this." "We drew it together," Lily said proudly. "It's us." Evan joined them, offering perfectly golden marshmallows, then settled beside Aurora, one arm wrapped gently around her waist. She leaned into him, the blanket now covering them both. The fire crackled soft and warm. Beyond the tide whispered, steady and calm. Evan leaned close, voice barely above the breeze. "Thank you." "For what?" she whispered. "For letting me come back." She turned and kissed him slow and sure beneath the endless sky. If a camera had captured it, it would have slowly pulled back, framing the 4 of them, glowing in firelight framed by sand and sea, stars above, and something even brighter within. This wasn't the life they had planned. It was the one they had chosen together. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love, loss, and finding the way home. If Evan and Aurora's story moved you, if it made you believe in second chances, the strength of family, or the kind of love that never fades, then help us keep telling stories like this. Click subscribe to stay connected with soul-stirring stories. Hit the hype button to show your support and let us know you want more.